What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope you like this video. This is Cherish Today, season 1, episode 7. Now they say next week is the season finale. Now I've heard that this show is set up so that next season are going to be all new characters, and that the show itself was just about different types of relationships, not so much these characters. And a part of me gets it, but a part of me is sort of sad about that if that's the case, because I really want to see this story and I want to continue to see how it evolves. But especially with this episode being the way it was, next week I just don't know if they're gonna give us what we need. But we're gonna move on and we'll see where it is. I'm gonna send me a good old tweet to Miss Ava, and see what she's talking about. But like Ava be responding to me, child. But anyway, so this episode we start off now. These last couple of episodes we've had big gaps. Like it'll be a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. But in this one, we're only 3 months after. Unless I misread something, because they asked Evan. They said, "Asked how long have y'all been married?" And then she said 2 years, and then he said 2 years and 3 months. And I'm thinking, weren't they married 2 years in the episode last week? So we're 3 months down the road, which seems like reasonable for everything except for that business situation. And we'll get to that. The 3 months seem reasonable for them to be dealing with the relationship issues. The professional issues, the timeline seem a little off. Anyway, we picked up this episode. Evan and Gently are seeking counseling. And it seems like the idea is Evan's. He had the idea of them going to counseling. He feels like they need the counseling. Gently doesn't seem to feel like they need counseling. And a part of me is like, Gently, you know y'all need counseling. But I think that what she's hearing is, now that things are going great in your life and things are not going so great in my life, we need help. But that's not the situation. The situation is, I think y'all need to deal with some issues that y'all been kind of kicking down the road. A lot of the issues that came up in this therapy session, in my mind, are issues that they've been kicking down the road. Now, let me say this. I have really, really been trying to give Gently the benefit of the doubt. I feel like in the first review, probably even the second review, I kind of beat up on Gently pretty bad. Because I felt like a lot of what was going on was Gently in her own head, dealing with her own issues and taking it out on Evan. That's not to say that Evan is perfect. I don't think he is. However, um, if I had to put the weight on one of them, it would be Gently. And I've been nice. I really haven't been knocking on Gently as bad as I kind of want to, because I don't want it to feel like I'm just beating up on her. But in this therapy session, I'm kind of back where I started. So they went to three. I'm gonna come at this a little differently. They went to 3 different therapists, right? They started off with the first therapy session with a traditional therapist, in a traditional office. Looked like a middle-aged white guy, and I think he was really probing, and he was making them. Um, um, face some hard facts in the beginning. And what we pick up on is that Evan lost his company. Gently moved forward with the podcast, and she said she produces podcasts with an S, and that it's the number 1 podcast in the country. Now, the thing about being in a podcast is that it can go from 0 to 100 really quickly, depending on how much you have behind it and all that good stuff. Like, I could see that happening. However, for her to get to the point where she's producing multiple podcasts and that they're number 1 and stuff, it seems like that's a lot of work. And then for him to lose his company, it seems like a lot happened in 3 months. Y'all know what I'm saying? And I know last week's timeline wasn't the exact, because I mean they weren't celebrating their 2-year anniversary, so I'm sure it's not like an exact 2 years to the day, but it did seem like they had been married somewhere between a year and 2 years. Anyway, so. But when they were in that first office, I was really waiting for. I almost got the impression I was getting. I was almost waiting for it to be like Evan is a stay-at-home husband now, and Gently is out moving and grooving. Like at one point, she reached down to go into her purse, and I just knew she was gonna pull out her phone and be too busy. The way the episode started, I thought that's what it was, but they didn't take me there, so I can appreciate that. But the second, and I'm gonna get to the issues in a minute, because again, it was just a lot, and it overlapped, and I ain't got time to be figuring out what they said to what therapist. So the second therapist was somebody that Miss Luma, um, recommended. Now, at the beginning of the first session, she said, "I'm here because he wants to be here." But she said, "I don't feel like we need this, and I don't know why we're here." So when they were leaving the first therapy session, going to the second therapy session, Evan was like, "Look, do you want to do this?" He said, "I said I was going to do it. I'm committed to it. Why can't that just be enough?" And he was like, "Well, if it wasn't Miss Luma's recommendation, would you still be wanting to go?" They get to the second one, and it's very non-traditional. The woman is practicing out of her home, and it seems like she might be a little late for their session because Evan keeps looking at his watch, and he says, "I mean, is this even a real doctor? I don't even see her credentials." And you know, Gently makes a smart comment saying, um, she makes a smart comment about, well, maybe everybody doesn't have to show off. And again, see, that's the kind of stuff, Gently, that be pissing me off, because I know when I go to a doctor, I want to see their credentials. I don't think that's showing off. You know what I mean? It's like those type of smart ass comments. A lot of the episode was flashing back on their relationship. And again, I feel like they spent maybe too much time with the flashbacks. Cause I mean, we only on episode 7. The shit just happened last week, and the week before that, and the week before that. I don't feel like we needed that much time on the flashback. Cause I really feel like about half this episode was. What the hell is that? Y'all, that's fireworks. Look, I was like, what the fuck? It's fireworks. Why people are shooting off fireworks in March? Couldn't tell you. I don't know if those are St. Patrick's Day fireworks. I don't know. But those were fireworks, not gunshots. Okay. Because I thought they was gunshots. And I thought I was going to be like, what the? But they were fireworks. Anyway, so, hold on. Okay, we back. I had to go explore some things. I started to start this video all over again, but I said, yeah, I might as well just experience what I just experienced. But it was fireworks. It was not a gunshot, because the nigga was about to be like, anyway. But ultimately, you guys, what we see is that again, I said they're dealing with the issues that they kicked down the road. Now, the second person they went to was Miss Luma's recommendation, and although I like her style, that laid back style, I don't necessarily know if that's the best person they should stick with, because she's a fan. She's a fan of Gently's podcast. She's a friend of Miss Luma's, and she's a fan of what Gently is doing. And there was a whole moment where she fanned out when she found out, not found out because she already knew before Gently got there, but there was a whole moment where she fanned out and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm loving the podcast, and when you did this and when you did that," like there was a whole fan moment, and Evan was just kind of sitting there like, "Really?" So I don't think that's their best choice. The third person they went to was even more untraditional. He had them sitting Indian style and outside, and almost like a very, natural, let's do some yoga type vibe. I think that all 3 counselors were able to be successful to get them to deal with some part of their issue. Now, let's talk about what we learned. I told you guys already, Evan lost his company. He says that they're still financially stable, but he did lose his company. We found out that she's become very successful. The podcast has become very successful. They explored the family dynamic, how his family accepted Evan and likes Evan, and how Evan's mom did not accept her, even though the father did, the niece did, but she's been having issues with the mom. And Evan, he explained, he said, "Look, my mom, basically, to put it nicely, he said, my mother's a snob. And she raised me to be a snob. And she had to accept the fact that I wasn't as much of a snob as she was. Although I love my mother and me and my mom are close, yet no, my mom didn't picture seeing me with someone like Gently. But it doesn't sound like his mother is actively trying to sabotage them. It sounds like they've had moments where they, it sounds like their relationship ebb and flows. Um, Evan found out that Ben was the one that talked Gently into coming back the night of the proposal. He never knew that Ben was the one. We find out that Gently never let go of the comment that Evan made about the money piece of it. And what Evan said was, he said, look, you know that I always had your back and you know that I always supported you. But in that moment, he said, it wasn't that I didn't want to hear about the podcast and I didn't want to hear about your idea. But in that moment, at that time, you knew what I was dealing with. You knew what I had on my back. So it's not fair of you to act like I didn't care about what you were trying to do, or I didn't care about about your idea, because in that moment, you know what I was dealing with. I had the dinner. It was a $40 million deal on the table. My company, the future of my company was at stake, and you knew I was under a lot of pressure, and that wasn't fair to me. And I agree. I don't think that in that moment, because he didn't respond the way you wanted him to respond, meant he didn't care. I understand your disappointment, but come on, Gently, come on. Now, I thought he lost the company because he went with that corporate raider, and she basically did exactly what his partner was afraid of. She raided out the company and left it for bones, and because he said, I made a miscalculation, da 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 da. So at some point came up about trust, and the therapist was like, well, it sounds like y'all have a trust issue. And Evan was like, yeah, I think that's a part of our issue. And Gently said, that is our issue. And she was saying how she didn't like the way he treated his business partner. She was like, we were friends. I mean, he was your friend, and I can't believe that you did that to him. And he was like, come on, Gently. He was like, that's not fair. He said his team leaked out some important information that wasn't public, that got out to the public, and it cost us. And the board wanted somebody's head on a platter, and it wasn't going to be mine. And she said, but he was our friend. I just think that was cold. Evan was like, it wasn't about friendship. It was about business. And again, I'm with Evan on that one. I'm like, dude, we're running a business. If you are allowing things to get out that could ruin our business, I have to make the best decision of the business. Now, they still didn't connect how that evolved into Evan losing the company altogether, because it sounds to me like he threw his business partner overboard to save the company, but somehow he's still not the CEO. I don't remember them getting that deep into it. Y'all let me know if they did or not. I don't know. I don't remember. So then but then Gently was saying, but then Evan started, now this is where I kind of was with Gently a little bit. Gently started saying how Evan was saying basically that he wanted things to go back to the way they were. He said he misses his wife. He doesn't see her as much anymore. When he comes home, she's not there. And she was saying, but when it was the other way around, it wasn't a problem. When I was home, because you were out working, it wasn't an issue. But now that I'm out working and you're home waiting for me, now it's a problem. Now, just as quickly as I had your back, Gently, then you lost me again, because then you started talking about how you don't owe him an explanation, and if you don't feel like coming home, you shouldn't have to come home, and you don't owe him because I'm not beholden to you. And he was like, but I thought we were beholden to each other. She said, so I owe you an explanation. When I go out, I have to tell you where I'm going and when I'm coming back. Yeah, that's what marriage is. And it's not about asking permission as it is about respect. That's what marriage is. And that's what he was saying to her. He was like, yeah. And she just seemed to think it was unreasonable of him to expect that of her. And I'm thinking, wow. Like, Gently, you just probably shouldn't have stayed. You should have stayed single. Then, I knew that. There's the police over there, honey. I live out there. The police don't play around here now. The people around here don't play now. And there might have been some fireworks over there, but the police still had to come through and figure out what's going on. Anyway, um, then Gently made a comment that I thought he said that she taught him how to take risk and come out of, his comfort zone. And she said that he taught me that anchors aren't a bad thing, you know. So I feel like, was anything resolved? No. Ultimately, because marriage is work and it's an ongoing thing and it's not going to be the same. But what I do feel like is, I feel like I think what came out with all three therapy sessions is that they do want to stay married and they do love each other. They just have to figure out their new normal. Evan, and I think a lot, again, it sounds like a lot happened in a small window of time. Evan, you've got to figure out your purpose again. If you've lost your business and this is what you've been focused on for the last 4 or 5 years, building it up, working out the kinks, doing all those different things that happens when you go into business for yourself, you have to figure out your new normal again. And now we have Gently, who has found a purpose, whereas up until this point she didn't really have one. She was floating around, scared to commit to anything or anyone, working, for Miss Luma. Like, now you have a purpose and you have to figure out how being married fits into that purpose, because again, you gave up your identity whether you realized you were doing it or not. And she said about the money piece of it, she said that she did sort of become that person for Evan because he was paying the bills. So she felt like that was her duty to make sure she ran his errands for him and make sure she cleaned up the house and stuff like that, because she felt like that was the trade-off for the money, for the financial stability. So I don't think we came to any type of easy answer, to be honest with you guys. But what I do feel is that they heard each other maybe for the first time. I don't know what the ultimate answer is going to be for them. I think sometimes I think their issues are bigger um than the solution. Other times I think they can make it work. I think they can. So I don't know. We'll have to see. And again, that's just a brief overview. I wasn't about to rehash every single problem they had and what they said to every single therapist. I ain't had that in me. But ultimately, I think that's the gist of it. And again, I don't have an answer. I do feel like if I had to put the blame on somebody, I would put it on Gently. But I really don't want to assess blame, because in a relationship, you know, nobody's perfect, you know. Anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think, which I know y'all gonna do, honey. Y'all be giving me some good comments and feedback on this one. But y'all let me know what y'all think. Drop it in the comments. Peace.